Most first-time cruisers don't realize they've already made their most expensive mistake before the ship even leaves the port. It doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels normal, logical, even smart. You pick what seems like a good deal. You follow advice that everyone gives. You trust the system because, why wouldn't you? But here's the truth no one tells you. The cruise experience is designed to reward people who already know the hidden rules and quietly punish those who don't. That's why two people can take the exact same cruise, sleep in similar cabins, eat at the same restaurants, and one walks away feeling like they got incredible value, while the other ends up wondering where all their money went. In this video, you're going to see the normal things first-time cruisers do without thinking, and why experienced cruisers avoid them completely. And trust me, by the time you get to the later points, you'll start to realize just how much of your trip could be affected by decisions that feel completely harmless at the time. Mistake 1. Booking the cheapest cabin. It usually starts with what feels like the smartest decision of the entire trip. You're booking your cruise, scrolling through cabin options, and you see it. The cheapest room available. Same ship, same ocean, same destinations. And you think, why would I pay more just to sleep in a room I'll barely use? That's exactly what almost every first-time cruiser thinks. But experienced cruisers pause right here, because they know something you don't. That cheap cabin is rarely just cheaper. It's positioned in places most people don't pay attention to when booking. Near elevators where foot traffic never really stops. Below pool decks where chairs scrape early in the morning. Above engine areas where there's a low vibration you won't notice at first, until it keeps you up at night. And here's where it gets expensive. You arrive tired. You don't sleep well. You start spending more time in crowded public areas just to escape your room. Maybe you even try to upgrade mid-cruise, only to find out the price is now significantly higher than if you had just chosen better from the start. Experienced cruisers don't look for the cheapest cabin. They look for the quietest location within their budget. A simple trick they use is checking deck plans carefully and avoiding cabins directly above or below high traffic zones. If you ever feel unsure, you can even ask your cruise line directly, "Is this cabin in a quiet area of the ship?" That one question alone can save your entire trip from becoming a restless, frustrating experience. And the worst part? You won't realize this mistake until your first night on board, when it's already too late to fix. Mistake 2. Skipping the drink package. It usually feels like a small, responsible decision. You're looking at the drink package price and thinking, there's no way I'm drinking that much. Why would I pay up front for unlimited drinks when I can just order what I want and stay in control? That sounds logical. In fact, it sounds disciplined. And that's exactly why so many first-time cruisers fall into this trap. Because what they don't realize is how the pricing is structured once you're on board. Every single drink isn't just the menu price. There's gratuity added automatically, taxes in certain ports, specialty coffees that feel harmless in the morning, a soda here, a cocktail there, maybe a bottled water when you're heading out for an excursion. Individually, none of it feels expensive. But here's how it actually plays out. You order a drink, tap your cruise card, and walk away. No cash. No immediate consequence. It doesn't feel like spending. So you do it again, and again, and again. By day 3, you've stopped thinking about the cost entirely. And by the final day, you're staring at a total that quietly climbed past what the drink package would have cost you in the first place. Experienced cruisers don't just ask, will I drink enough? They ask, how do I behave when I don't feel the money leaving my hand? If you know you tend to order freely when it feels frictionless, The drink package isn't about saving money per drink. It's about capping your total before it spirals. A simple strategy they use is setting a daily drink limit if they skip the package, or calculating a rough break-even before the trip. And if the numbers are close, they choose predictability over surprise. Because on a cruise, the real danger isn't what you plan to spend.
It's what you stop noticing.
Mistake 3. Using your cruise card without thinking. It starts the moment you step on the ship. You're handed a small card. It opens your room, lets you order food, buy drinks, access services. It becomes everything. No cash, no wallet. Just one simple tap. At first, it feels incredibly convenient, and that's exactly the point. Because what most first-time cruisers don't realize is that the system is designed to remove friction from spending. You're not handing over money. You're not seeing your balance drop in real time. There's no pause, no hesitation, just tap and go. So you grab a coffee in the morning, a snack in the afternoon, maybe a drink by the pool. You sign up for Wi-Fi. You leave an extra tip because the service feels great. Each decision feels small, almost insignificant. But here's what's really happening behind the scenes. Everything is being tracked, quietly added, stacked on top of each other. And because you never feel the pain of paying in the moment, your brain doesn't register it as spending. It feels like part of the experience, not a transaction. Until the final night. That's when most people open their account for the first time and feel that sudden shock. Not because of one big purchase, but because of dozens of tiny ones they barely remember making. Experienced cruisers treat that card very differently. They don't just tap and walk away. They create friction on purpose. Some check their onboard account every single day. Others set a mental limit before the trip and stick to it no matter how easy it feels to spend. A few even treat every tap like real cash, pausing for a second before confirming anything. Because they understand something most people don't. The cruise card isn't just a convenience tool. It's a system designed to make spending feel invisible. And once it becomes invisible, it becomes dangerous. Mistake 4. Booking excursions without research. It usually happens the moment you step off the ship for the first time. You see the list of excursions offered by the cruise line. Everything looks polished, organized, safe. You assume it must be the best option because it's coming directly from the company running your trip. So you book it without thinking too much. That's exactly what most first-time cruisers do. But experienced cruisers hesitate here, because they've learned this lesson the expensive way. Cruise-sponsored excursions are designed for convenience, not value. You're often placed in large groups. You follow a fixed schedule. You visit the same crowded spots as everyone else, and most importantly, you're paying a premium for it. What many people don't realize is that in most ports, there are local operators offering nearly identical experiences. Same beaches, same landmarks, same activities, but at a significantly lower price and often with smaller, more personalized groups. So why do people still choose the cruise option? Because it feels safer. And that feeling is what you're paying extra for. Now, to be fair, there is one real advantage. If a cruise excursion runs late, the ship will wait. If you book independently and something goes wrong, the ship won't. That's the trade-off. Experienced cruisers don't blindly avoid cruise excursions. They evaluate the port. If it's a complex destination or far from the port, they may choose the cruise option for security. But if it's a simple, well-developed location, they research local providers in advance, read reviews, and often save a substantial amount without sacrificing the experience. A simple question they ask before booking anything is, am I paying for the experience or just for convenience? Because on a cruise, those two things are rarely the same. And if you don't know the difference, you'll keep overpaying without realizing it. Mistake 5. Ignoring daily, small charges. It never feels like a problem in the moment. You see a small charge, a few dollars here, maybe a service fee there. It's so minor you don't even question it. You're on vacation. You tell yourself it doesn't matter, and that's exactly how it starts. A bottle of water when you're heading out. A late-night snack because everything else is closed. A quick room service order because it's easier than going upstairs. Maybe a minibar item you didn't even remember touching. Each one feels harmless. But here's what most first-time cruisers never do. They never add it up. Because if they did, they'd realize those small charges don't stay small for long. They stack, quietly, consistently, every single day. By the time the cruise ends, those tiny, forgettable decisions have turned into a number that feels completely out of proportion to what you remember spending. And that's where the frustration kicks in. Not because the charges are wrong, but because they feel invisible until it's too late. Experienced cruisers approach this very differently. They don't ignore small charges. They respect them. Some avoid the minibar entirely. Others check their onboard account daily just to stay aware. Many set simple personal rules, like avoiding room service unless it's absolutely necessary, or choosing included options, even when paid ones seem more convenient. Because they understand something most people learn the hard way. It's not the big purchases that drain your budget. It's the small ones that never feel important enough to stop. And once you stop noticing them, you've already lost control. Mistake 6. Following common advice without context. It usually starts before your trip even begins. You watch a few videos, read a couple of blog posts, maybe scroll through forums where people share their best cruise tips. And everything sounds convincing. Skip the drink package. Always book the cheapest cabin. Never pay for excursions. Don't tip extra. Do this. Avoid that. It feels like you're getting insider knowledge. But here's the problem. Most of that advice isn't wrong, it's just incomplete. Because it was never meant for you specifically. Experienced cruisers understand that every cruise is different. Different ship, different itinerary, different habits. What works perfectly for one person can quietly cost another person a lot more money. For example, someone who barely drinks might genuinely save money skipping the drink package. But if you enjoy a few cocktails a day, plus coffee, plus bottled water, that same advice becomes expensive. Or take excursions. In some ports, independent tours are a great deal. In others, they're risky and complicated, especially if timing is tight. The mistake isn't listening to advice. The mistake is applying it blindly. Experienced cruisers don't follow rules. They ask better questions. They look at their own habits, their own schedule, their own priorities. A simple shift in thinking makes a huge difference. Instead of asking, "What do people recommend?" they ask, "What actually makes sense for the way I travel?" Because on a cruise, the most expensive decisions aren't always the obvious ones. They're the ones that feel right, because everyone else is doing them. Here's something experienced cruisers rarely talk about, but it can change how you spend money on a cruise immediately. Before you buy anything on board, pause and ask one simple question. Is this something I would still buy if I had to pay cash right now? That one moment of hesitation brings the invisible cost back into reality. But there's an even more powerful trick. When you're unsure about a purchase, especially something like a package, an excursion, or an upgrade, don't decide immediately. Instead, walk away and come back later. You can even use a simple phrase when speaking to staff. Thanks. I'll think about it and come back later. This does two things. First, it breaks the emotional impulse that cruise environments are designed to create. Second, it gives you time to compare, calculate, and decide with clarity instead of pressure. Because once you understand how the system encourages quick decisions, you stop reacting and you start controlling. And that's the difference between a cruise that feels expensive and one that feels worth every dollar. By now, you've probably noticed something. None of these mistakes feel dramatic in the moment. You're not making one huge, obvious bad decision. You're just doing what feels normal, what feels easy, what feels like the right thing to do when you're on vacation.
And that's exactly why they're so dangerous. Because every single one of these choices, the cheap cabin, skipping the package, tapping your card without thinking, booking the easy excursion, ignoring small charges, following generic advice, they all share one thing in common. You don't feel the cost when it happens. You feel it later. Usually at the worst possible time, when the trip is already over and there's nothing you can change. Experienced cruisers aren't smarter. They haven't unlocked some secret level. They've just made these mistakes before and decided never to repeat them. So let me ask you this. Which one of these feels the most familiar to you? Which one would you probably have done without even thinking twice? Because that's the one that would have cost you the most. If you found this helpful, make sure you subscribe, because in the next video, we're going to break down the exact cruise fees that most people never even notice until they show up on the final bill. And once you see those, you'll never look at your cruise the same way again.